I'm Shawn Daley, and you're listening to the True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book creators and supporters. It's January 19th, 2021. I'm John Swinimer. If you want to drop me a line, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. On this episode, I chat with Shawn Daley about the Bridgebuilder's Creed. The podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. And it's also available on the True North Country Comics channel on YouTube. Shawn is a Ringo Award-nominated artist of Samurai Grandpa. He also has Terra Quill, Ogre, Better Place, Shiner's War, and other books to his credit. His newest project is the Bridgebuilder's Creed, available in February. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Shawn Daley about the Bridgebuilder's Creed. So, Shawn Daley, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to chat with me. I appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and that we'll get right to the heart of the matter, which is your newest project you have going on called the Bridgebuilder's Creed. So I want to ask you a bit more about that, the origin of it, and what it's all about.
Sure, yeah. I started writing this book as soon as I finished my first one, which was Terra Quill Collected, back in around 2015. Because in that book, I had kind of created this weird fantasy world that Terra Quill takes place in, and I wanted to write more stories in that world with all the rules of the world and to try to explore some more characters and flesh it out a little bit. So I decided that I was going to sit down and just write a story that had a lot to do with how I was feeling at the time, which was just kind of anxious and a little concerned that I would never put out another interesting story again. Those anxieties went into this book, and I'm happy for it. It actually was very therapeutic and cathartic in many ways.
Really, you actually thought you wouldn't produce another interesting story? I mean, that's quite fascinating.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's a thing that maybe a lot of creatives maybe go through, and just the fact that you put a lot of time and effort into releasing something, it comes out, and then you almost feel like an obligation to top yourself for the next one,
right?
And then it becomes like, can I even do that? There's a lot of fears and worries about stuff like that. At least that's how I felt, but I didn't hate that feeling because I found that it was quite motivating and helped drive the next story.
Okay, no, that's. Thank you for explaining that. I don't mean to laugh, but I guess that's very true. I mean, if you achieve a goal, can you top yourself? I mean, that's the thing you always want to do is make it better than the last one, I guess. Yeah.
That's the thing, yeah, and that kind of is the goal, like you just said. It's like to really try and outdo yourself, and it's been interesting. And this was like the first full-length graphic novel that I ever written and drawn myself. So there was a bit of a learning curve stepping up from short stories.
So without giving too much away, how would you describe this story to somebody else?
Well, it's very much like an exploration of character. It's about an old bridge builder who is part of a group of bright-minded individuals who basically brought infrastructure to this land called Terra Quill. A great war happens, and he's the only one left. And it's really about him kind of picking up the pieces of his life and dealing with all of the friends that he lost along the way, and trying to just really, rediscover himself and rebuild as much as he can. And that's without giving too much away. That's kind of the gist of things.
Well, it sounds very intriguing, that's for sure. Absolutely.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah. Now, I noticed on Twitter you showcase some of the tools that you use to create your work. So I'm wondering if you could describe, if you can, what tools you'll be using for this particular project.
The whole thing is actually finished, and I used basically one type of brush to ink the entire thing, which was Winsor & Newton Artist Watercolor Sable number 4, I believe, was the exact model of the brush that I was using. And I used pen nibs as well, like inking nibs, Hunt 102s, and crow quills, and that was about it. Those were kind of the tools that I wanted to use to work on this book, as opposed to like marker, for example. Just I don't know. I feel like this was the book that I used to learn how to draw with those particular tools. Just because 170 pages using the same brush and the same nibs, like you get used to it, I guess, after a certain amount of time.
Was there consistency in the work, or did you notice at the end that the beginning didn't match up with the end, or how did you manage that?
No, absolutely. There's quite a bit of a discrepancy actually in the artwork. You'll be able to see me learn how to draw the characters as the book progresses, which I hope isn't too distracting, but it was something that I definitely noticed because I had actually drawn this book over the course of, it would have been 4 years now. I had started this in 2016 or so, and finished it late last year. So it had taken a while as I was drawing it in between other books and different projects and whatnot. So yeah, the art style changes a little bit. Hopefully it's not too noticeable, but also hopefully it'll be interesting to see how it changes.
Sure, and I guess you get into a rhythm. That's the other thing too. Once you're using the same tool, you know how it's going to, produce and affect the art, and you get into that rhythm of knowing what the outcome will be.
That's the thing. Yeah, the more practice, the more proficient, essentially. So yeah, it was definitely an awesome learning experience, exploring different artistic materials.
Great. Now I noticed this is your seventh project that you're producing via Kickstarter, so you're very proficient with it. So I'm wondering if you have any advice for others who are thinking of putting out their own book on Kickstarter.
Yeah, be prepared. If you plan on releasing your Kickstarter in a month, maybe make it 2 months. Make sure that you're really giving yourself enough time to kind of comb over every little thing that you can and give yourself enough time to prepare. Because if you're doing this yourself, then you're responsible for everything. You're responsible for the marketing, you're responsible for any advertising or any social media stuff. Like it, it's such a huge undertaking. And another big thing is make sure that you're pricing your shipping properly, because everybody I know has had shipping troubles when it comes to, finally figuring out how much the shipping costs. And I did that too. I did that a ton with some of my first projects. Was kind of undercutting myself for shipping. So that's a big thing to keep in the back of your mind while you're setting this up. But basically, you just want to be as prepared as you possibly can. And I found that talking to other people who had produced their own Kickstarters was a huge help as well, because everybody seems to have a different thing that they went through that they want to make sure that you don't have to go through.
Right, right. Now, with this particular project, did you offer or are you offering any incentives?
Yeah, there's going to be roughly, to start off, 10 different reward tiers, which are going to include original artwork from the book, the full hand drawn 11 by 17 inked pages, as well as some of the behind the scenes material that went into the making of the book, like pages of hand drawn layouts and character sketches. A lot of original art actually is going to be in different reward tiers, including custom commissions, which I think a lot of people are looking for when they're looking at reward tiers. There's going to be 9 by 12 black and white, as well as completely watercolored commissions as well. So yeah, there's going to be it's going to be a lot of different types of artwork being handed out as rewards on this book. And then one of the other rewards that I was going to be planning is some of the original materials that went into the making of the book, such as the brushes and the inks and the nibs that we just talked about. I'd love to kind of hand those out as rewards. It's something I haven't. I'm sure it's been done, but I haven't seen it on Kickstarter before. So yeah, I think it might be cool to, especially for people who just have a fascination with hand drawn art and what goes into it, to have pieces of the tools that actually went
Hmm.
into making the pages.
That's very true. I mean, in this day and age, I mean, no slight against people who use digital, but it just means that there's fewer and fewer of real hand worked art done these days. So
For
that's
sure,
tremendous.
yeah. Like I love working digitally as well, but as far as comics are concerned, it's just, the hand-drawn aesthetic and ink washes and watercolors what got me into comic art in the first place. And I just, I love just kind of, getting my hands dirty, I guess, so to speak. Yeah.
Sure. Well, one of the things I noticed, if I remember correctly, talking to other creators, a form of art called gouache. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah, yeah. It's like almost like a type of paint that is very close to watercolor. I've experimented with it a little bit here and there, but I always just end up going right back to watercolor for some reason. Probably just because my collection of paints is just absurd at this point, so it
Sure.
just makes sense.
Right, right. No, just curious about that. So you said the Bridge Builders Creed is complete. So I'm wondering what's next for you. What do you have coming up on your art table down the road?
Well, in August, I believe it is, of this year, I've got a book called Better Place. That's going to be another, I think it's over 150-page graphic novel in black and white with a little bit of color in it. That was written by Dwayne Murray, who's just a fantastic writer. I hope I get to work with him again in the future. And that's going to be released by IDW Top Shelf. Yeah, I think it's August this year. I'm working on a book with Easton DeVerna, who wrote Samurai Grandpa, another fantastic writer, amazing
Mm-hmm.
collaborator and friend. He pitched me the script for kind of like a one shot that we're going to be doing together. But then after that, we're going back to Samurai Grandpa and we're
Ah,
revisiting a new story with him. So
nice.
that will be out probably at the end of this year. There will be a bit more information. Actually, maybe even sooner than that. I'm also working on another volume of Ogre with Bob Sally. Again, a fantastic writer. I'm so lucky to be working with these people. And that, yeah, more information on that later this year as well, because we're actually also working on a one shot together, Bob and I, that should be released on Free Comic Book Day.
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff going on. Been busy lately.
Yeah, it sounds like you're going to be busy for a while. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good. That's good. So, where can people find out about your current work and your future work online? What social media do you use as well?
Well, I use Twitter a lot. Twitter and Instagram. Twitter is just at Shawn Daley, just my name. Instagram is at Shawn_Daley. And those are mostly where I post the most, just because they seem to be the most visual networks. Like they really rely on photos and imagery a lot, so it's kind of perfect for making artwork. So yeah, I mostly just use those two. It's just easiest. I know a lot of people like to be on as many different platforms as they can, but honestly, that kind of becomes a full-time job after so long. Like that's kudos to them for maintaining a presence over so many networks. It's wild.
It can be a lot, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Shawn, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering if there's something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview.
It was nice being able to just like talk about artistic materials, which is something that I really don't get to talk about a lot. So I appreciate being able to, speak my mind about that. And obviously, if anybody listening has any other questions about some of the materials that I get to, use on a regular basis, even about paper, stuff like that, if you're just getting started, please feel free to hit me up on any social media sites and ask me those questions. Because when I was getting started, figuring out how to draw, I would actually send messages to some of the comic book artists whose books I was reading at the time and just kind of pick their brains about some of the materials that they were using and their process and whatnot. And everyone was just so nice about just sharing information and making suggestions on materials and stuff. So if I can do the same for anybody else who's just kind of getting started, I would love to do what I can to help out.
Thanks to Shawn for the chat. You can discover more about Shawn on Twitter at Shawn Daley and on Instagram at instagram.com/Shawn_Daley. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And please leave a good rating. Also check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and follow along on Twitter at True North Comics. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to the video channel. And please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks again for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2021.